All right, welcome back to Unbound Being. And today I wanted to have a little talk about the difference between judging and assessing, right? A lot of people always say, don't judge. And it's true, we judge often. I certainly have judged way too much in my life, and judging other people, it doesn't even feel good to oneself. And if you hear other people talk about people and things, and instead of saying so in their presence, of the person they're talking about, it also disturbs you. You can hear them like, why don't you say that to the person himself, But often we have the tendency, and I certainly have, I put myself on the same thing. I've judged too many people, right, in my life, and put them down, in a way like, oh, look at them, they don't understand, right? Kind of that thing, all right? But there's also another thing that's called assessing. And assessing is completely something else, and that's something we have to really look at, We assess all day long. We assess whether we have to brush our teeth. We assess whether it's time to leave, otherwise we're going to be late. We make an assessment when we look left and right before going onto the street, right? Well, basically left, right, and left, right? Is that the rule? Especially, at least for the countries where we drive on the right side of the road, right? So you do left, right, left. You make an assessment, Is there something coming? Is there something coming? Should I cross the road? It's an assessment. And it's not a judgment. But there's a fundamental difference, right? And that's basically what it means. It means, can we see the difference between a judgment and an assessment? Because when you assess something, you're basically trying to see whether or not this is going to be advantageous to you or damaging to you. You don't want nothing to damage you, right? You don't want to cross the street or not brush your teeth or leave the fire on or leave the stove on and burn your house down. So you make an assessment. Oh, did I turn it off? Yes. It's good, you turn it off, right? It's an assessment. Now, a judgment would be the moment where there basically becomes a negative attachment. Basically, a negative emotion starts grabbing on. So it's not just, for example, you'd say, oh, stupid, I left the fire on, and then you basically judge yourself as being dumb for doing so. You make an assessment, oh, I double checked, right? And the fire's still on, I better turn it off, right? So that's an assessment. But the moment it goes into a negativity, you'll see it's a judgment. And that's when it starts hurting you. It hurts you without you, whether you know it or not. Whether I know it or not, you feel it. If you really sense it, you center yourself in the moment. And you come back and say, how does it feel, when you say something like that? When I just said it, for example, you look and you say, I judge that person, or I judge that thing or that situation. For example, take the weather. You can assess the weather, right? You have to know whether you can take a jacket out or whether you can have a nice t-shirt on because it's beautiful sunshiny weather. It depends whether it's freezing out or whether it's a great temperature to go to the beach, right? So you make an assessment. It's like, oh, what's the weather today? Take a look. Oh yeah, it's quite rainy. I better take a jacket, right? You could even go to see the weather predictions, right? As they do it. You make an assessment, because if you don't make the assessment, which is what we do all day long, which is basically what the ego was built for, officially, technically, the ego is a good thing, because the ego is doing that exact thing all day long. It's whether you bump into something, whether you bump your toe or not, whether something is going to hit you or not, whether you take something that might be old, you're like, oh, what's that? There's something in my glass. You check it out. You make an assessment. But the moment there becomes an attachment, that's when it starts being different. So that's how it works. The difference is when you feel from the moment you say, what's the weather like? And you look outside and you see, it's raining, And it's okay, you made an assessment. It's a rainy day, which is good for nature. A lot of plants and things love water. Most places on the planet, which are beautiful and lush and green. Not saying the desert doesn't have its own beauty, but the really green places on the planet is because of water, right? So life thrives with water. So a rainy day is not a bad day. It's not a shitty day. It's not shitty weather like a lot of people say, right? They have the tendency to do so. But you go and you say, okay, it's a rainy day, so I'm going to take this and that coat or the umbrella or whatever you want to do. I better put on the shoes that don't get wet when I step into puddles. You make an assessment. But the moment you realize that it becomes, it's a shitty day, you're judging. And so when somebody's walking on the street, maybe, let's say a group of guys, young guys are walking towards you and they're kind of wild and, they're dressed a bit odd and it looks like they might be some kind of gang and they're a bit drunk or something, right? Let's say. And not to judge them for it, because what you do is you realize, oh, okay, this might turn out to be a situation I better watch out for. And the moment you do that, the moment you make an assessment, it's okay. You don't make him as you don't judge him as bad. You don't make him into something like negative. You don't say those people are less, or they're not worthy, or they're a mistake of life or something. God made a mistake. No, what you do is you make an assessment and you say, ooh, if these guys are drunk and if they're in a group like that, chances are that they might pick a fight or something, right? So I better try to avoid. So what I usually do in cases like that, I kind of happen to focus on something else. I might take out my phone or something and be like off. Because if you're noticing them, but you're trying to avoid them and they notice that, it might even be something that triggers them, right, to pick a fight with you. But basically I try to get away from it. This is an assessment. I say there's a chance that might happen, so I better do this or that, right? But when it goes like, oh, they're dumbasses, and they're stupid and they're ignorant and they're drunk, and that's when it becomes judgmental. And I've done it often. But generally what you're trying to do with an assessment is you're trying to see, is this going to be good for me? As an unbound being, as a being who wants to be more unbound, even because, we're all at different levels. There's no good or bad, and there's no higher or lower in that sense of judging, of being bad. We are all creations of the one. We're all expressions of the one consciousness. But you might run into somebody like that, maybe somebody who's a crack addict, I'm just saying, something like that, or somebody that's always in trouble, somebody that's always in trouble with the law, somebody that's always stealing, and you know that they're always stealing things, you might want to keep away from them. Is that a judgment? No, it's an assessment. You see, it's your right to stay away from situations that might hurt you. If there's things out there, whether it is objects or people, you want to stay away with it. Away from it, right? Let's say you go to a rough ocean. It's a beach, it's a bit rough today, there's currents going around, there's lots of people that drowned here. It's an assessment, it's not a bad thing. The ocean is not negative, it's not judged, can't be really judged to be negative, but as an unbound being, we really want to make it work, and the way things work is try to avoid those things that hurt you. And to avoid the things that hurt you, you have to make an assessment. But try to keep it away from the judging. I notice my being shrinks when I judge. I listen to other people judge other people or talk badly about other people instead of addressing the person themselves and saying, look, I don't like what you did there or there. You hear them sometimes talk negatively, and it's not nice. It makes my being shrink. It's like, and when I do it, it's like, and I do it still sometimes, and I catch myself doing it all the time. So, but this is the thing to do as unbound beings, to catch ourselves in the moment and realize, oh, I just crossed that line. I just crossed that barrier. I just crossed that moment where an assessment became a judgment, where something that was intended by the ego to protect me from possible damage to go to something that is, negatively judging and put somebody out there in a bucket and in a certain corner and say that's a stupid person or something like that. And that line is something you have to see, whether it's the weather or whether it's a person. So judge not, as they say, if you want to be more unbound, because you are restricting your own being, Judging situations and people actually is a constriction of yourself, because you're basically saying that the universe does not know what they're doing, what he's doing, what she's doing, what it's doing, right? The universe, the divine principle of life, the beauty of all, right? The matrix, the cosmological wonder that we are, whatever you want to call it, right? This infinite creative being that we all are, allows those people. It allows those situations. It allows even the forest fire. It allows the shark to rip through an animal like a seal or something, right? It allows all of that. It's not good nor bad, but you do have to keep assessing, because you wouldn't want to be the one bitten by a great white shark, right? So that's all you can do. As unbound beings, we can make assessments, but watch yourself. I, for once, I want to watch myself all the time, because the moment you cross that line, you are denigrating the universe, and you're taking away from other people. You're basically denying the part in the whole. When you judge, you say, that part is wrong, there is some kind of failure, the universe has somehow missed the point, lost control, and allowed some fluke thing to happen which should not be. That's what we do when we judge. Whereas an assessment is, look, those things are out there and they might do this and this to me, so let me not walk that way, but let me walk that way. Let me avoid possible pain, because pain is not wrong, and damage and death and all these things are not wrong, but they certainly are something that you might want to postpone or avoid as much as you can. And when they do happen, it's a question of acceptance, but which is another talk altogether. So check out the difference between assessing and judging in your own life. As an unbound being, try to see that and try to never cross that line, or as little as possible, because you are constricting your own being. And as an unbound being, we don't want to be constricted. We don't want to take away from ourselves, even though we might not see that it is ourselves. So I hope that helped you. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to like the video if you do like the video, and hope to see you next time. Enjoy your day.